Knives out for Abbott.
Queensland rout sparks fresh plan to dump PM.
PM fights for his political life.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And to a tumultuous week in politics and the media, in which Tony Abbott and the coalition now find themselves fighting for survival. The crisis had been brewing for some time, but it blew up last Wednesday before the LNP's disaster in Queensland, when the world's most powerful media baron weighed into Mr Abbott's royal nightmare by tweeting this message from New York.
Abbott again. Tough to write. But if he won't replace top aide Peter Credlin, she must do her patriotic duty and resign.
As Mr Murdoch made clear, Abbott's advisor had to go because she'd not stopped the PM making an ass of himself by knighting a prince.
Abbott knighthood a joke and embarrassment.
Rupert was not the first to voice such sentiments, but his electronic graffiti made instant headlines across Australia, with the Sydney Morning Herald running no less than 3 stories on its website. It was also big news in The Guardian, The Mail Online, and just about all the non-News Corp sites. And it was also seized on by TV and radio news and talkback.
OK, let's go live to Lane Calcutt in Canberra Lane. The intervention of Rupert Murdoch creates another problem from the Prime Minister, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, Peter. Every political leader wants the backing of a media baron like Rupert Murdoch, but recently there have been signs the normal support is slipping.
So how could one man's tweet cause so much fuss? Was it really such big news? And how come the thoughts of one of Murdoch's scribes then got to be first story on ABC Radio News next morning?
Leading this bulletin, right-wing commentator Andrew Bolt delivers a jolt to the Prime Minister in the continuing row over a knighthood for Prince Philip.
ABC Online also ran Bolt's jolt as its lead story, while News 24 devoted almost 25 minutes to his comments in just 3 hours between 6 and 9 a.m. Bolt also made news in News Corp's Daily Telegraph and Herald Sun, which told us he had broken off his holiday to join the fray.
Prime Minister Tony Abbott's decision to award a knighthood to Prince Philip could be fatal for his leadership, says Herald Sun columnist Andrew Bolt.
The night before, on Macquarie Radio, Andrew Bolt had told co-host Steve Price, with a heavy heart, that knighting the Duke was irrational, pointless and
pathetically stupid. Gosh, I didn't mean to be that strong because I actually like Tony Abbott very much. But this is such a very, very, very stupid decision, so damaging that it could be fatal.
But Bolt was not the only News Corp commentator to give the Prime Minister a kicking. Earlier that day, before Rupert's tweet, 3 columnists and an editorial in The Australian had also laid into the PM.
Giving Prince Philip an Australian knighthood is the worst decision of Abbott's prime ministership.
The year needed to kick off with a great start. Instead, it's kicked off with one heck of an own goal.
In Sydney's Daily Telegraph, star columnist Miranda Devine had also put the boot in.
Why Credlin has to go.
And during the day, as Rupert was tweeting, she was doing her stuff on radio and TV.
There is no way that Tony Abbott should have gone out and gonged Prince Philip, and that really the Chief of Staff has to wear the blame.
But Ms Devine's boss was quick to scotch suggestions that any of these columnists was writing on his instructions. When one tweet suggested,
at least we now know why Miranda wrote that column. Rupert made her do it.
Murdoch rapidly fired back,
Miranda, completely wrong. Just read it.
Now, whether this critical chorus was orchestrated by Murdoch, or whether he and his columnists independently decided the PM could no longer be defended, it is a big story. Because News Corp's papers have been powerful supporters of Mr Abbott and his government, and if they abandon him, it will leave him all but friendless in the media. During the last election, as you'll doubtless remember, the Daily Telegraph ran hard against the ALP and Kevin Rudd with raucous front pages like this.
Kick this mob out.
I know nothing.
Media Watch's tally of the telly's coverage showed that there were more than 20 anti-Labour stories for every one that criticised the coalition. And back then, Rupert Murdoch was also busy tweeting the praises of the future PM.
Conviction politicians hard to find anywhere. Australia's Tony Abbott, rare exception.
At the time, Mr Abbott was happy to defend the media magnate's right to meddle, dubbing him a hometown hero, even though he's long been a US citizen.
I've got a lot of time for Rupert Murdoch because whether you like his papers or don't like his papers, he's one of the most influential Australians of all time.
But less than 18 months later, that love affair has turned sour. With the latest polls showing Mr Abbott and his government seriously unpopular, even News Corp's columnists are now saying the coalition could lose the next election. And with talk of a leadership challenge, the test will be whether they stick with Mr Abbott. One of his potential rivals, Julie Bishop, recently dropped in on Rupert Murdoch while she was in New York. The PM can only hope that is not an omen. Certainly, his rival's protestations of allegiance will give him little comfort.
The Prime Minister has my support.
The Prime Minister has my support.
But, as we've discovered this week with the Queensland election, it's not just press barons who like to think they can pick our leaders for us.
We've now established what Premier Newman and his government are. They're prostitutes. We're only haggling about the price. I'm afraid I couldn't back Campbell Newman to run a chook raffle.
During the Queensland election campaign, Sydney shock jock Alan Jones did his utmost to stop Campbell Newman being re-elected as Premier. And it worked. Although Jones's broadcasts are now the subject of defamation action. For a fortnight, in a daily 1-hour special, Jones gave listeners to Brisbane's 4BC a relentless, one-sided ear-bashing in which he hectored and harassed the Queensland Premier and LNP government about coal mining in the state and political donations from mining companies.
The next 2 weeks will not be flattering for Campbell Newman, Jeff Seeney, Lawrence Springborg or any of their mates. Sadly for them, I know too much about their behaviour.
All attempts to divert him were in vain.
Alan, I just wanted to ask you, as a Queenslander, mate, would you be prepared next week to set, say, 2 days aside to allow people that have an axe to grind with the Labor Party to have their say? People believe in a fair go, mate, and I don't think it's a fair go if we just hear one side of politics.
As a 72-year-old radio host made clear, his rage against the party he would naturally support was fuelled by alleged personal betrayal, in which he claimed Newman had broken a promise not to expand the Ackland coal mine on the Darling Downs, where Alan Jones was born.
Campbell Newman told me in my house that if he was to become Premier, there would be no Ackland Stage 3. Campbell Newman lied to me. I have no reason to believe anything he's promising Queenslanders today.
Jones charged that the Queensland government's decision to approve the mine's expansion was influenced by donations of $700,000 to the Liberal Party from the mine's owner, and he accused the Premier of prostituting himself. Allegations which were soon seized on by the media pack.
Mr Newman, given that you say your government can be trusted and accountable, can you clarify for voters whether you did go to Mr Jones's house and whether you did promise that Stage 3 wouldn't go ahead for once and for all?
Well, I just clarify it like this. I said what I said yesterday at Ipswich and I don't intend to comment further.
Why won't you answer it? Clear it up.
Because I said what I said yesterday.
For a time, Newman stonewalled questions. Then he opted to sue, as did Deputy Premier Jeff Seeney, State Treasurer Tim Nicholls and the state's top bureaucrat John Grayson. Newman and Seeney are claiming that Jones has falsely accused them of dishonestly approving the mine and of lying. And they're seeking aggravated damages because they say Jones knew these accusations to be false. But whatever happens in court, was it politically wise to sue? Jones's boss John Singleton thinks it was a major error, telling the Australian it just gave more publicity to Jones's tirade.
How silly is he? Campbell Newman is as poorly advised as Tony Abbott. Maybe they've got the same advisor. Who the f*** advises these people?
So how much did Alan Jones's campaign affect the result, in which the LNP has probably lost government and Newman has certainly lost his seat? Well, let's listen to the pundits.
I think Alan Jones has had a very big influence on this outcome.
I'll go further than that. If Labor wins, they won because of Alan Jones.
Yeah. Look, David, I have to say I agree with that completely with what Graham has said. So here he is, the most successful broadcaster in Australia, the most listened to, attacking viciously every day the Newman government. This caused them immense damage. He's played a very major role in this.
Well, we're not so sure, because there were plenty of other things at work. Asset sales in Queensland, Newman's record, that knighthood, and the fact that the coalition is being smashed in polls across the country. And if the media is so powerful, why did the Courier Mail's attacks on Labor not have more effect? And why is Mr Abbott and his government on the nose with voters, despite News Corp's and Alan Jones's steadfast support? Clearly, there are limits to how much the media can influence the democratic process. But in the meantime, Jones's crusade has done wonders for him, because he's now going to get a daily 1-hour show on 4BC, much to the delight of John Singleton, who told the Oz.
Everyone knows they're 4BC now. It's a very cheap way to launch 4BC and Alan Jones in Queensland. Very cheap.
Radio 4BC is currently owned by Fairfax, which is about to merge with Singleton's Macquarie Radio if the competition watchdog agrees. And that also makes the campaign cheap, because if Jones loses the legal actions, it won't be Singleton or Macquarie who pays.
He's suing Fairfax, and that's wonderful because we're not a joint venture yet. It costs Fairfax money, not us, he said. It's bloody great.
The Jones and Newman show has been portrayed in the media as a colourful fight that's all about ego, personalities and power. But let's not forget that what Jones has been alleging since mid-2014 is of real public importance, if it can be substantiated. Because as Media Watch reported last year, Jones is attacking the way he believes the state has been governed. To be fair, Jones has often made accusations which he has been unable to prove. On our count, he's had at least 20 defamation suits against him since 1990 and has lost or agreed to settle around 3/4 of them. But even if Jones loses this action too, we still believe it's a conflict of interest for any political party to accept money from companies that benefit from its decisions. It's why New South Wales has banned political donations from property developers. And it's why we believe Queensland should do the same with mining companies. We're no fans of Jones's partisan style, but his crusade was more than a power play or a personal vendetta. He was demanding accountable and transparent government, and that's something all of us in the media must pursue, no matter who is in power. And finally tonight, some good news. Australian journalist Peter Grester is on his way home after 400 days in an Egyptian jail. He was freed and deported by order of the president.
Well, Peter Grester is a free man. He is safe, healthy and very, very happy to be on his way home.
We should not forget that hundreds of journalists around the world remain behind bars for doing their job. And you can read more about tonight's stories on our website, where you can also get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or Media Watch on Twitter. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.